Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really huge shift in how companies talk about their impact on the world. It's a new European rule called the CSRD, and honestly, it's set up to change just about everything. So let's just jump right into the big question, right? For the longest time, trying to answer this has been almost impossible. We've all heard companies boasting about their green initiatives, but figuring out what's real and what's just, greenwashing, it's mostly been a guessing game. And that kind of uncertainty, it's not just a minor annoyance. The fact that we haven't had clear, reliable information has created this massive problem, a real bottleneck holding back actual progress in sustainable finance. Yeah, this problem actually has a name. It's called the information gap. And when a gap like that exists, well, the fallout is way bigger than you might think. It hits investors, it hits the economy, and it definitely hits the planet. You see, the old system, which was called the Non-Financial Reporting Directive, it just wasn't cutting it. I mean, look at these problems. Companies could just not disclose important info. You couldn't compare one company to another because they were all using different metrics. And a lot of the info was just plain unreliable. It created this huge accountability vacuum, which, let's be honest, is the perfect breeding ground for greenwashing. And here's the real kicker. When investors don't have good data, they can't see the full picture of risks and opportunities. And that means money, the very fuel for our economy, wasn't getting to the companies and the projects that could actually help solve some of our biggest environmental and social challenges. Okay, so this new rule didn't just appear out of nowhere. It's actually a super critical piece of a much, much bigger and incredibly ambitious plan for the entire continent of Europe. At its heart, the European Green Deal is Europe's new strategy for growth. The whole idea is to figure out how to keep the economy growing without burning through more and more of the planet's resources. And to pull off a transformation that massive, you have to fundamentally change how money moves through the entire system. And you can really see the logic here. It's laid out perfectly. Step 1, set this massive goal, the Green Deal. Step 2, figure out how you're going to do it by getting money flowing towards sustainable investments. But that leads you right to step 3, the crucial part. You need a tool to make that happen. You need reliable data to show the money where it needs to go. And that tool, you guessed it, is the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, or the CSRD. This is the piece of the puzzle designed to finally close that information gap we were talking about. Now, check this out, because this little change in wording is actually a huge deal. We went from non-financial reporting to sustainability reporting. That's not just semantics. Calling it non-financial kind of suggested this stuff didn't really affect the bottom line. Calling it sustainability makes it crystal clear. Yes, this information absolutely is financially critical. So the CSRD is basically built on 3 pillars. First, its scope is way bigger. It covers a lot more companies than the old rules did. Second, and this is key, it brings in mandatory common standards for everyone. So now we can actually make apples-to-apples comparisons. And third, it requires a third-party audit of this information, which gives it a whole new level of credibility. Okay, to really get what makes these new standards tick, we have to talk about a core concept. It's called double materiality. It might sound a little academic, but it's a really smart idea that forces companies to look at sustainability from 2 different angles. So think of it like 2 sides of the same coin. On one side, you got the outside-in perspective. That's asking, how do things like climate change affect the company's finances? But then you have the inside-out view, which asks, how do the company's own actions affect the world around it? The CSRD says you absolutely have to report on both. So, what's the big picture impact here? Why does having all this standardized, audited data really matter in the real world? Well, it's all about empowering better decisions and, just as importantly, driving a whole new level of accountability. So who's actually going to use all this new info? Well, you can see there are a few groups, but it really boils down to 2 main players. On one side, you have investors who can finally see the long-term risks and opportunities clearly. And on the other, you have civil society, think NGOs and activists, who can now use cold, hard data to hold companies accountable for their promises. And hey, this isn't all just about pressure from the outside. For the companies themselves, doing this kind of high-quality reporting has some serious perks. We're talking better access to investment capital, much smarter risk management, and a stronger reputation. It's truly a win-win. This quote, right from the directive, really nails the ultimate goal. They want sustainability information to have the same status as financial information. Just think about that. For decades, financial reports have been standardized and audited. This is all about bringing that same level of rigor and seriousness to how a company impacts people and the planet. Of course, a change this massive doesn't just happen with the flip of a switch. The new standards are being rolled out in stages, giving companies and the market time to adjust to this new world of transparency. So, if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that the CSRD is so much more than a box-ticking exercise. It is a fundamental tool designed to rewire our financial system, to get capital flowing where it needs to go, and to finally put a serious dent in greenwashing. And that really leaves us with a powerful question to think about. For the very first time, we're about to have this flood of mandatory, reliable data on corporate impact. The real question is, what are we, as investors, as customers, as citizens, what are we going to do with it?